Hello, and welcome to Season 3, Episode 7 of the Virtual Coffee Podcast. I'm Bekah, and this is a podcast that features members of the Virtual Coffee community. Virtual Coffee is an intimate group of developers at all stages of their coding journey, and they're here on this podcast sharing their stories and what they've learned. And we're here to share it with you. Here with me today is my co-host, Dan.
Thanks, Bekah. Today we're joined by Mike Rogers. Mike is a Ruby developer from the UK, and if you're a Virtual Coffee member, and if you're not, you should join. You've probably seen his chatbots at work every day in the Virtual Coffee Slack, which we very much love and appreciate. We had a really great time talking with Mike. Mike has had a long and successful career, but at one point he realized he no longer felt good or satisfied with where he was as a developer. He shared with us what he did to change course and how he has learned to approach tending his career almost like a garden. Mike has a lot of insights, and we had a blast talking to him. I know you're going to enjoy it.
We start every episode of the podcast like we start every Virtual Coffee. We introduce ourselves with our name, where we're from, what we do, and a random check-in question. Today's question is, you can have an unlimited supply of one thing for the rest of your life. What is it? We hope you enjoy this episode. Hi, I'm Bekah. I'm a front-end developer from a small town in Ohio. And if I can have an unlimited supply of one thing, I'm going to say energy, because I feel like there's not like power for my lights, but like for me personally.
Hi, I'm Dan. I'm a front-end developer from Cleveland, Ohio. And rest was the first thing that popped into my head. I don't know. I was telling Bekah before we recorded, my 2-year-old woke up maybe 4 or 5 times in the middle of the night last night. I just don't, or if time, I don't know how time would work. Like that was going to be my other answer, but like that doesn't super make sense.
That's also sounds dangerous.
Physically.
You're messing with the space-time continuum, and I think
I'm all right with that though. I'm all right being a time variant,
Whoa.
But like, it's like almost like a time turner or something, right? Or like the pause time thing. We've talked about that, I feel like, before. It's come up a few times. But yeah, so I'm going to stick with rest though, or energy. I suppose it's almost the same thing, right?
Sounds like you kind of just picked Red Bull there, Dan, if I'm honest.
Yeah, well, it's right. Yeah, it's a slippery slope.
Really, really
sure.
what?
But I'm going with rest. That's my official answer.
Okay, well, I'm Mike Rogers. I'm a Ruby developer, originally from the United Kingdom. I currently live in the United States, which is quite exciting. If I had an unlimited supply of something, I want to say enthusiasm, because sometimes I go through those little down dips where I'm like, I can't be bothered to code, and I just wish I could turn on something and be like, no, now I really want to code again. This is great. We'll get something done. That'd be me.
I like that. I was almost going to say, like, you're just wishing for something that you already have, but
Right.
that explanation.
Yeah.
That explanation
I would
good.
more of the thing I already have, please.
Mike is one of the most enthusiastic members of Virtual Coffee. If you are ever in a room with him and you are feeling down, I don't think it's possible to leave that room without feeling happy. So I hope that you get that from this episode too.
Always throws me off when people say that, because everyone says that, and I'm like, seriously, I'm just being myself. Like, what do I do to people? But
It's the best. You have the energy. So I guess my answer is just more Mike Rogers in my life.
There you go. We just need an unlimited supply of Mike, and we'll be in good shape.
So we're so excited to have you here with us on the podcast. Thank you for being here. And we always like to get started with the origin story. So tell us how you got to this point in your life.
so I was really dreading this because my story is so vanilla dull. I was going through my notes and I was like, I don't think it could be any more boring. It was a very typical entry into tech where I was building websites when I was like little, like when I was like 12, 14, just in Dreamweaver, if you remember that old tool
I use
from
Dreamweaver.
Adobe.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I loved it. It was so good. And then I'd like go to like school and I'd show my friends and then we'd all like start building websites and have them online for free. And then very quickly I was like, oh, I really enjoy this. This is really fun. And then I went to university and I'd done a CS degree, but very focused on web. And that was great fun. And then I just ended up kind of getting a job, like vaguely in what I wanted to do. Like someone told me Ruby on Rails is like quite a fun framework. And I was like, yeah, it does look fun. I'd done some PHP, but then yeah, I looked at Ruby and it was like, oh, I like this. This is a pretty language. So I was like, I like you. Have an ice cream. Be the best way to describe my reaction to that. And then to kind of fast forward to how I got to where I am now, I had like a few years where like I was kind of quite happy just traveling around like the world, kind of freelancing and doing a bit of work. And more recently, like I wanted to kind of get a bit more stability in my life and then have like a full-time job where it's like, oh, I actually get paychecks every month for like doing work as opposed to not getting paid sometimes as a freelancer, which is very scary. Um,
Yes.
Yeah, that's rough.
that's pretty much it.
So were you a digital nomad or?
Yeah, that was what I was going for like so long. I really enjoyed it. It was like the best few years like of my life. Where I was just jumping between like major cities where like I'd find the best in there. I'd find amazing co-working spaces and I'd just work and I'd have such a good time. I'm also quite an anti-authority person, so it's quite nice kind of going against the grain and finding people who are similar to that. So I also got featured on a magazine as well. I think you may have seen the picture where I'm just kind of sitting outside on my laptop, just like working, and someone was like, "Oh, cool, I'm going to write an article about you." And I'm like, "Do it." And yeah, they actually did.
Yeah, it's
It
like
was wild.
up top of a very high place, and Mike is
Yeah,
sitting
yeah,
there with the computer.
yeah. There were some other shots as well.
That's
I also had a
that's
dog with me
amazing.
at the time.
Did you have favorite places that you like to work from, or was your goal just to go as
Oh,
many places as possible?
so originally my goal was to go see all these places, like which I'd read about in magazines, but very quickly I realized the places I wanted to go as a tourist was different to where I wanted to go to like live for like a few months. So
Mm.
my favorite places, like kind of in no particular order, Berlin, like the city in Germany. There's some really nice like meetup groups there where they're so friendly, and I'm still friends with the people I met in those meetup groups. One of them tweeted me yesterday saying we miss Mike, and I was like, oh,
Mm.
that's wild. And then Prague as well. I went to a wonderful co-working space there. The owner was an American guy, and he's just like, I just wanted to make friends, so I started a co-working space. And I was like, I like this guy, same
That's
mindset.
awesome.
And then I in terms of actual like crazy places, I really enjoyed Japan. Like it's a bit more tricky to work there. Like I guess working remotely wasn't a thing when I was there, but I've really enjoyed just kind of just the Japanness of everything.
So were you working consistent contracts that just kind of allowed you to go to these different places, or were you trying to pick up contracts as you're moving? That just sounds like a lot of logistics. Like, well, I need work and I need a place to stay. I need a place that has internet, you know?
Oh, luckily I was young and happy to wing it every time. It was so bad. In hindsight, I think I was like a little bit crazy. I didn't even have like any money at the time. But like to cover like places to live, I would like do pet sitting where people would go on holiday. And then normally I just filter by who has the fastest internet. And then I just go to that person's house, and that worked really well. And then to actually find work, I had a few like startups I kind of knew about who needed work every now and again, and they would kind of keep me going here and there. And then sometimes I'd have to like do some really terrible freelance work, which I hated doing, where it was like the stressful kind of you wouldn't pick this project unless you were like really starving kind of freelance work. I always had this dream, and it was just the worst dream to like kind of go out with, where I was like, I'd have enough energy to make my own startup, and I could be the guy who's just like sitting on a beach earning like that passive income. And every time I tried, I never quite like finished any of the projects, but I had lots of fun.
Yeah,
That's
that sounds awesome
yeah,
and
it sounds
really
pretty great.
exciting. And
It's a fun way
so
to live.
you went from being a digital nomad to kind of deciding that you needed something more stable and
Yeah,
that go ahead, talk about that a little bit.
yeah. So I started hitting this problem, and it's such an uncomfortable thing to talk about, but when you're freelancing, you generally are going to stick to what you're really good at. So with me, it was like, okay, I'm really good at this very small particular thing. That's where I know I'm definitely going to get paid. And I kept doing that and doing that. And I just felt like I wasn't really making any progress in my career. Like I'd hit like a wall where the next place to go was not as like some kind of kid who just turns up with his laptop every now and again. And I got super sad because I talked to my friends who we all worked together in a company like many years ago. And I'd chat to them and then we'd be comparing our salaries because, that's such a good thing to do. And I'd come back and I was like, I thought I was doing really well, but no, one of my friends is earning twice as much as me. And he seems so much more like stable in his life. And he's got everything kind of a bit more like just a couple more of his like eggs in a row. Is it ducks in a row? That's the one, not eggs in a row. That would be horrific.
Eggs in a basket, ducks in a row.
Yeah,
Ducks in a
Ducks have
basket.
that's the
eggs, so
one.
they can be in
And
the row with them.
yeah, and I started kind of thinking, right, I really need to just solve this because if I don't push myself, I'm going to be that person. And I met a few of these while traveling where I would chat to them and I just was like, what are you doing? Like as soon as like maybe your technology goes, you don't have anything to fall back onto. So you could just wake up one day completely unemployed and you'll have to scramble to get work and you have too much more. And yeah, so I really, really struggled. So I thought the first best thing to do was maybe come back to the UK, settle down a little bit or try and find something a bit more stable, which was an exciting adventure as well. Like I managed to find a pretty fun startup to work for, which was very relaxing. And they kind of were able to challenge me a little bit more. And I really got out of my like little quiet shell of like going, okay, I can do some little bits of Rails, but now they're forcing me to kind of learn all these other things like server administration, how to optimize databases, how to really be fantastic at like front end. And that was quite a fun one to chase.
Was
So
that
at
a? I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead,
I was
Dan.
just going to say, was that still like contracting at that point, or was that like a employment?
Oh, that was like a full
That's
time role. That was
yeah.
wild.
Nice.
That was like my first full time job in like I want to say it was like 3 or 4 years at the time. And yeah, it was so weird. Like every day, it's like, oh, cool, I have a job to go to. This is great. Compared to where I'd ended up, and it was so fun. Like kind of looking back on the kind of the projects I had been doing, like there's like a certain trait to projects where they can only hire people for like a short amount of time. I'm sure everyone has like kind of encountered this where if they can only have a developer for like 3 months in a year, they're going to really cram in what they have to do and they're going to try work really hard to get stuff done. And very quickly projects become awful to work on. Like where it's like instead of like a nice logically laid out CSS file, it's going to be like all over the show, possibly even one big like cluster spaghetti mess. And so I try very, very careful not to make you put an explicit tag on this podcast, just a heads up. And then, yeah, also some of the projects were so old. And then being able to kind of work in a company and be like, hey, if we put some time into this, we can be way happier in like 3 weeks' time. Can we do that? And then they're like, yeah, which was quite nice.
So I want to back up for a second here.
Yeah.
So you talked
I
about
feel like I've like ran through quite quickly. I'm like,
no, this is great. This you started to feel this sense of there's a lack of stability, starting to feel stagnant where you are. So
yeah.
at what point did that happen? And like, was it that conversation about salary that really helped you to understand that, or how did you recognize that?
It was a really difficult thing to actually recognize. So the conversation about like salaries was the starting point of like getting that ball going of going, oh no, I need to fix some stuff. So as soon as like I started thinking, okay, actually I've done very similar projects and I'm not pushing myself anymore. Like my career is like, if you were to go look at my work history, it's like I was doing the exact same job over and over and over. Like I was on a treadmill almost. And for a lot of the jobs, I was like, I can't even remember doing half of them. I can see the paycheck there. I can see the customer name, but I couldn't tell you what was special about that. And that was quite, it was quite jarring as well. Like really strange feeling. It's like, am I unhappy or what's causing this unhappiness? Because I'm not satisfied with the work I'm doing. I'm not sure how to get around it. And I kind of jumped like how I ended up kind of like solving it very quickly there. But like as soon as I started becoming aware that I needed to start pushing myself a bit more, and the steps I had to make as well to correct that was very, very difficult. But it paid off quite quickly. And I'd love to go into some of the things I started doing as well. Would that be
Y-
okay?
Oh yeah,
Because it
absolutely.
wasn't like I got depressed and then I got a job. There was a lot in the middle. It was like,
Yeah,
cool,
yeah,
fantastic.
I think, once you start to recognize these things, like you said, it wasn't easy. There was a variety of things that had to happen. And so recognizing is step one. And then really
Yeah.
diving into that middle part, I think, is important because we often get the stories of, well, then I made this decision. And then everybody fast forwards through all of the hard parts of things. So I would love to hear it.
Yeah. Let's jump into the hard parts. So I want to say like the lowest point I had was I remember just sitting in bed one morning and I woke up and I was like, I don't even want to put my feet on the floor. I'm so miserable and unhappy with just the state of things. Like it's a really weird feeling to be like, oh, I'm earning quite good money doing something I think I quite like, but I don't even want to like literally put my feet on the floor and press the power button on my computer this morning. Like that is too much. And uh, that was definitely a morning. I remember the morning really distinctly where I was just like, oh, this could go downhill really fast. And I was even thinking, do I want to leave tech? Because do I enjoy programming for fun and actually getting paid for it is the issue. And then I remember actually I really like money. That's definitely a good motivator. So I was like, it's probably not that. And I quickly made a list of all the things I wanted to be like very soon on in the future. I was like, well, what is some small bit of all the people I follow online or really like? What's something small they've done which I really want to copy? So one was I follow a developer who he contributes a lot to open source. And I was like, okay, well, I don't have to contribute a lot. I can just maybe contribute just a little bit and have my little piece there. And then I started watching YouTube tutorials a little bit. And there's a particular guy, his name's Chris Oliver. I always really liked his style where he just does a quick 10-minute video every now and again. And I was like, okay, I really like that. And then the final thing, I was like, well, I also want it. I also want to make sure I write down the things I know just in case I get really bored and no one finds my videos and no one finds my open source work. So at least maybe I can at least solve someone's problem if I don't stick on with this dev stuff. So I started like blogging again, and you can see it in my blog post, by the way. You can see like the dips. I was like
Yeah.
when I was taking breaks, and then suddenly like I started doing stuff again, and then it like quietens down a bit while I have a job, and then it's like, I have to take it back off again now when I like do more stuff. But that was kind of the main things I was doing. So I like made this list and I started working through the list. And as I started working through, I started talking to my friends about this. And turns out they were all in the same scenario where they were all like not quite satisfied and they're all working on little things to try and like boost their careers and get to that next level where they can just do interesting, challenging work where they're going to get paid really well. And I have a really good friend called Tom Cadwell, and we worked together when we were 20. We paired every day, and then we both went our separate ways. And then we've texted like pretty much once a week about what we're doing. And he's like he's like me to other how people describe me to other people. Where I'm like really cheery. He's that for me, and it's like, oh, cool, nice. And we have like a bet between us, like dollar bets for like who's going to get the most followers on certain things or who's going to get the most views. And that was really brilliant to like help us like, or help me kind of keep sticking with the things I was doing. So like, I think right now we have a bet for who's going to have the most YouTube followers by the end of the year, and he's winning. So I really want to work hard to fix that. But so once like I kind of started working through this anyway, and I felt more confident to apply for those harder jobs where maybe I might actually be challenged a bit during the interview. And because it's I hate applying for jobs. It's like the worst experience. It's almost like dating apps where it's like you're going to be rejected thousands of times and that's going to like destroy you, but it could be that 1000th time is actually the perfect person for you. So you kind of have to stick with it. So like I would apply for jobs and I'd keep like upping the ante each time. And I'm like, okay, I know a few of these things and I'm going to do everything I can to do it, or like feel confident about what I'm applying for. So that worked quite well. And as I was doing this, I found the best way to find out about jobs was through local meetups and stuff. So user groups. And that was great. That was like, oh, cool. We're meeting all these friends. And little tip for everyone. Meetups are a great way to find a job. It's like you meet the people who are going to be interviewing you beforehand and you can figure out if they're like nice people or not.
Mhm.
So I highly recommend that. So yeah, that was kind of like what I did. And then eventually, like as I was fighting through the stagnation feeling, I came out at the other side and then I was like, okay, I don't feel stagnant anymore. I'm being challenged. I'm surrounded by really smart people. And I felt like I really was going, like, I was back on track where I wanted to be. Like when I kind of compared myself to my friends, I was like, cool, we're all kind of back on the same level now. I managed to very quickly level myself up. And that was a great feeling. And it kind of made me think about like how your career is kind of like a garden as well. Hopefully this metaphor works where if you kind of like forget about your garden and let it grow wild, it's gonna not be a great garden. You've got to sit there and maintain it. And so you can, plow the grass, put it in, but you also have to like let it grow as well organically. Like you can't sit there poking the seeds because the seeds will never grow. You've got to like water it and maybe brush the soil. I don't know much about gardening. Is that
Maybe that's a British method
Yeah,
that I am
maybe.
not aware of.
Sure. Yeah. Get the
Maybe,
soil brush out.
that's let's put it down as a British thing.
Well,
And
that's one of the gardening you pick that up in Japan, right? I'm pretty sure that's the Japanese
yeah,
soil brush. Yeah.
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 You have them in your bathroom so while you're doing stuff. It's like it's a
Is
relaxing
that
thing
what
to
they
do.
do in the bathroom?
That's a different brush.
Yeah,
I love this metaphor.
yeah,
I was I was thinking about what you're talking, and yeah, and there's a lot of different things you can do with a garden, right? And there's a lot of different things you can do
yeah,
um with your career. You could plant a bunch of different things and kind of tend them all, like
yeah.
maybe like what you were doing before, like as a freelancer or something, right? And so
Yeah,
you get
or
a
you
couple,
could focus on like certain individual things. So if you're like,
right,
what, carrots,
right,
that's going to be my thing for this month.
yeah,
You can grow carrots. Or if you want to have a big tree, which is going to take a long time to grow, and you put the seeds in and you look after it. Maybe you put some like stakes in to help it grow straight and strong.
hmm
And that's a lot like a career in a way. And also sometimes you just need to have people to help you with things. Like doing stuff on your
hmm
own is hard. It's so much easier to have help from other people, like, especially if you're doing something big or heavy, or even just asking people like, hey, how far apart should I plant these like carrots? It's like, yeah, I don't know how far apart you should put carrots, but when I have grown carrots, I put them too close
6
together and they ended
inches,
up
maybe?
bunching together.
Yeah.
But
No, yeah, there's lots of things like that. And even like if you think about weeding and how that applies to sometimes we pick up bad habits, right? And
oh
we do
yes,
need some help like taking care of that part of it or recognizing that like, oh wait, that's not a tomato plant. That's this weed that looks similar to a tomato plant, which I have in my garden
yeah,
right now. It's a weed. I've got an app to identify these things now. So see, I found help. And
that's
this
one.
applies to at so many different stages of the career too. I love it. Like this idea of it can be so hard to be patient when you are learning something new. But that idea, like, look, these things don't grow overnight. Like I put tomato plants in June and I don't have tomatoes that are red yet. It just takes a while and you have to give it nutrients, you have to feed it and then that's when you collect the things that you've worked so hard for.
Yeah, the super nice ones. That's super good. Yeah. Um, so I had something there, and then it just whooshed completely out my brain.
I was
Just
just
when I
thinking
thought,
of, yeah, no, I was going too far in the metaphor. I was trying to figure out how to keep, how do you keep chipmunks and squirrels out of your career? And I don't think
yeah,
I haven't found the,
if I had one good thought though, it's like getting rid of those bad habits as well, because that's the other thing, which is I feel keeps so many people back. Is like they develop all these bad little problems in their like how they approach problems, or like other aspects. So a good example is, let's say you have a developer who's very bad at writing commit messages or doing pull requests. And if you were to work with them, that would probably rub off on you. And then if you went to another company, they might look at that when they're interviewing you and be like, no, you're bad at this one particular thing we really care about. And I found the best thing to do is like constantly almost work in public as much as you can and ask for constant feedback. Also, I've got this like little hot tip for anyone who's kind of senior and is kind of in that position where like, have I picked up bad habits? Pair with junior devs. They're fresh out of like boot camps or like courses. You can teach them a lot, but also you can see what they're doing differently to you. And I'd be pairing with my junior, they're not a junior developer, they're just a developer, but they call themselves junior. And I'm like, don't call yourself junior. I digress. Okay, so I've been pairing with one of my colleagues and they're fantastic. And they do things a bit differently to me. And I don't want to tell them that I think they're actually doing it a bit better sometimes. And I'm quietly changing a lot of my habits now because they've obviously found a more efficient way because they just entered the industry at a different time where like all these extra things I do aren't required anymore. Like I've just picked up something from somewhere where it's like, maybe using Git version control, where it's like the way I change my branch, it's like the worst way possible. How I merge stuff. There's like an easy way now. There's like, and I'm just completely wishing on it the whole time. So yes, that's been one of those little hot tips, which is like completely changed. And I highly recommend it to pair with anyone and anyone who will help you.
I think that's great. I think it's great advice. I wanted to call out real quick your piece of advice right before that, which was, working in public, as ways to improve your, your own skills or whatever, your habits, all of that. I think that's huge. And if you, I find myself lots of times writing code that I know I'm only going to see probably, or, most likely I'm the only one that's ever going to look at it. Lots of times I now find myself doing that. That same thing kind of maybe, not explaining things as well, or whatever, making commit messages that don't actually say anything, or all that, writing issues that are just one line instead of explaining what, the actual process. And as soon as I find myself working where I know there's going to be other people, whether it's work, or where I know there's going to be a couple people, or open source stuff, public stuff where I know like possibly everybody could see it, makes you, almost forces you to do it well, and if you do it enough, it becomes, like you were saying, a habit, as opposed to, but it kind of feels like a pain. And you feel, I find myself personally doing that more, even with my own stuff, just because it's like, oh, it's just how I do write an issue now,
You have that feeling, I'm going to be sitting behind you, reading it back to you in a snarky voice, right?
Right.
That's what I do for everything online now. Every tweet I read, it's like, I do it in my snarky voice. Every time I write one, it's in my snarky voice. And it's like, this bug's broken. Here's how you reproduce it. It's like, good, right? There's all these steps, and as soon as the snarky voice disappears, it's like, right, it's a good issue. It's a good pull request.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, somebody this was at a virtual coffee a while ago. Actually, I think it started on the podcast, but one of the random questions was, who would you want to have narrating your life or your inner monologue or something like that. And somebody mentioned Alan Rickman, and then I couldn't just, like, for the rest of the day, I had Snape, like Professor Snape, hanging over my head, doing the exact same thing, except in like his like sarcastic, slow, like, oh, can't reproduce the bug, Potter, like this, like just like
Alan
sneering, at my like bad commit messages.
It's fun. I want Nicky T to be like the guy who narrates my life.
Oh man!
So I've got such like a dev crush on him, where it's like when he starts like working in public, it's like, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. Like his confidence there is incredible.
Yeah.
So you've got me wanting to do an Alan Rickman impression.
Do it.
Yes, we need it.
On the spot. Good work, Otter. Shoot the glass. I don't think that's very good.
It's amazing. Oh man, he's the best. Yeah, that idea though of the just putting it in public, even if it's doesn't seem like I don't know, doesn't, like, not meant for an audience, you're not like performing or whatever. I still think it just helps so much. I think that's great advice.
Yeah, and honestly, it's the little things as well. Because if you're thinking this is in the public now, you're not going to do like little silly mistakes, like accidentally committing SSH keys or something, or API keys to version control. And then
Right.
in a few months later, when you decide I don't want to do this project anymore, or you want to open source the project, you don't frantically go, "Oh no, I have to nuke all the history,"
Right. Right.
just
Right.
in case. If you look at I've got 2 projects, by the way, where I nuked the history because I did exactly that, and I really regretted it afterwards. I was like,
Yeah.
it was like 2 years of like Git version control history, and I was like, I just just nuked them because I couldn't remember what was in there, but I wish I had done something a bit better.
Yeah. Who knows? There's probably ways to handle that. But yeah, like, yeah, having that plan in the back of your head, maybe this eventually will be open source. Yeah. I think helps your instincts kind of cover that sort of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, for sure.
So one day also, like I was working on a project, and my friend texted me, my friend Tom from earlier, and he said, "By the way, you're on the front page of Reddit," and it was on the front page of like one of the small like full like subreddits. It wasn't like
Yeah.
front page, but someone had just found my code base and was just sharing it and
Hmm.
talking about it, and I was like, "This is wild." It was only, I think, only like 25 people actually looked at it, and like maybe wrote some comments, but it was like overall everyone was really polite and nice, and I was like, I didn't expect that at all. I always assume people on the
Hmm.
internet are going to be terrible people, but
Yeah.
overwhelmingly most people are very nice, and are just very happy to see how other people work, and are very happy to see something shared.
I'm gonna back up a little bit because I just wanted to highlight this point that you said. Um, I've just found that there are so many people who have been developers for a while who are also feeling like this stagnation that I think can lead to burnout. And you even said like, should this mean that I leave tech? Should I try something else? And
Mm,
you said, was that the morning that you woke up and you like dreaded hitting the power button, right? Like you just
yeah.
felt this dread. And I think that I just wanna highlight that because I think that not enough people recognize, like, okay, this is a bad point. Like, this is time to evaluate some things and change some ways. So, do you think how do you think that you prevent that from happening? Um, or if you could go back and do things differently, is there something that you would do to avoid that stagnation?
Oh, it's a difficult question. So when I entered Ruby, there were 2 really prominent Rubyists, so Ryan B and underscore Y, and they are 2 developers who kind of very famously just left one day and never came back. And for one of them, we were like, "Is he okay? What's happened to this guy?" And I want to say there was an article in the New York Times saying like, "What happened to this person who was like everywhere and then one day just disappeared?" And I think they turned out to be a manager at Walmart in the end, and like someone like tracked them down for private investigator. And that always sat in the back of my head going, okay, so people do leave every now and again and just decide they want to get away from whatever life they've just created because it's just not doing it for them. And things I would do differently is I wish I had a bigger support network of like dev people. Back when I was like really peak unhappy, I didn't have anyone to talk to. Like I had like maybe 5 other developers I knew, and I wasn't that close with them. And I just wish I could have had someone to be like, "Hey, I'm feeling this. Has anyone else felt this? What did they do?"
Mhm.
And that wasn't, it's not that it wasn't a thing, it's just I hadn't found it yet. So I almost want to like encourage everyone to like grow that professional network, that little bush in the garden of the professional network of people who are like, be like, it's there for you to answer some questions. And if you sent them a private message, they'll be like sympathetic to be like, okay, cool. No, I can help you with this. And if you want to jump on a call or go out for coffee, then that's something they'll do. And I think it's easier now, like thanks to the global pandemic, there's like loads of nice Slack groups and you can pick out your individual people you really want to, make part of your like, inner circle of like people you really trust. Have you guys heard about the thing where you only have like 104 proper close friends? Like that theory? Um,
Mm, I
Yeah.
haven't.
no?
I vaguely, I definitely am familiar with, what you're
Yeah, like
talking.
it's some kind of human thing where you can only keep track of so many people properly. And so if you've only got like 100 friends, some of them are going to be family, some of them are going to be like old school friends, maybe. And I think you should probably pick like a few key developers or people in your field who you really like, and just keep them in that like little circle of 100 people who they could sit in your phone book or something.
I think that's great advice. Having somebody who is in whatever field you're in, and can understand a lot of the context that goes around. A close friend from when you were young, even somebody who you keep in touch with, but is in a completely different field, won't always have the context. Somebody that might be like, well, you have a good job that pays well. Why are you unhappy? Something like that. But I think that your
Yeah.
story is going to ring true with a lot of developers. Um,
Yeah.
the that feeling of
I think
unsatisfaction
you just
and
pinpointed the exact phrase which made me never want to talk out about being unhappy in tech as well. Because we're a really well compensated field. Like you tell
Mhm.
people that you earn like this is how much money you earn like starting. Most people are like, oh, I just want to do that job. And very few people maybe talk about, oh, actually, there's a very unhappy side to this where you are sitting inside all day tapping at a keyboard or planning out a database, and it could all go horribly wrong. And that feeling is like horrible. You could like that tiny mistake is there could just balloon into a monster, and if you don't deal with it, it's gonna be embarrassing, and people will almost look at your work, and your work always has your name next to it as well.
Mm.
That's something we've done as an industry. You
Forever.
can't hide away from this. Yeah, like I've picked up code and I went, who wrote this? And then I'm like, oh, it's that guy. Okay, he pops up everywhere, and it's like, oh, that's an interesting one. Or it's like, oh wait, no, it was me. I'm the bad guy in my story. Yeah, and it's difficult to talk to people about this because we're in a different world, and this is why I really like having a few really close developer friends who are like we're all kind of in the same bubble. We know like how it goes in terms of okay, yeah, you do have days where you are just sitting at a computer screen looking at a black terminal, and you're just like I can't figure this out. And you Google the question, and like one person on Stack Overflow has asked it, and it's like no answers, and it's like, how obscure is
Yep.
this? What am I doing wrong? So,
Or I feel like the worst is when you get that, but then they respond to their post and they're like, "I got it, never mind." I'm like, "Well,
oh,
can you
show me what you
share?"
did. What did you do to solve it? But has anyone gone back and found their old posts from when they were a junior to go correct them or to add more information, or just me?
There's no way I would ever do that. Like,
I,
that is a
I,
record of where I was at that point in my life, and I'm gonna just go with that.
I changed my username online at some point just to not find anything. Someone on VC found my old username because I'd written a comment like being like nice, and they're like, "Wait, hold on, this is the same writing style as that person, and that name is very like familiar." And they figured out it was me from
That's
like I don't know,
amazing.
2 years ago solving their problem, and they sent me a thank you. I'm like, good. I need to go back and work more on these posts now. But, so got some good detectives in the crowd who know my old username.
That Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, going back and that's an interesting idea of just going back and updating, answering your own questions. Back in the this is what I did. My problem is I wouldn't probably remember any of the answers
Yeah, but you might be
if I
able to
didn't do it
figure
right
it
away.
out.
That's
Like
true.
go back and be like, this is what I was asking. I think I vaguely remember what that question could be, or at least you can put it in the right place, or maybe archive the question if you were like, no, this is garbage. I need to hide this from the world, or
Yeah,
something like that. But I guess that comes back to the garden again. It's like, tidying up the bits in the back, which you don't often tend to, or like getting rid of the bad information, maybe if you put out some old comments. But
right. Or change your username. I maybe just throw a tarp
yeah,
over
little,
one section,
little pro tip
start
there.
somewhere else.
Every few years, start afresh. It's,
Right. Buy a new
but
plot of land.
yeah, I'm going to be Mike Rodriguez, I think. Just completely change my name. Grow a big bushy mustache. Shave my mustache.
So um, I found it really cool and impressive, your process for when you sort of we keep going back to that moment, but that moment where you made that list
Yeah.
and found some stuff that worked for you. That wasn't like I know you started applying for jobs and stuff too, but the list of side things like side projects or other things
Yeah.
like that. And so I guess my question with that was, do now that you are in maybe a more stable situation, have you found yourself, and I think the answer is yes, but like, have you found yourself keeping up with those things that you did mostly to get yourself moving again,
Yeah.
and if I was wondering if you could just
Um,
talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So this is, I guess, the other part of this where, like, when you're searching for a job or trying to make a big change, it's really easy to like go all out. Like, again, back to the garden of like, when you want to make it pretty, it's like it's easy. You put the effort in for a few weeks and then you've got a pretty garden. But actually, you need to maintain it over a long period of time, and you can't go in with like absolute full force, full time to make that garden pretty. You have to do like come up with a routine. So I'm still really bad at keeping up to date with like keeping things going out. But what I do is I've set myself a goal of like one post a month, one video a month. So, which I think is very achievable. It's
Yeah.
not too much work. It's a very steady flow. And I just say, right, that's what I'm going to aim for. I'm going to keep putting things out, and that's going to be what I do. Like, and I've managed to do that pretty well so far. And even if it's not like a really well thought out thing, like if I've got something on my mind, I just want to write about it, or I want to make a video on something because I know I've seen people struggling, it will happen. And then also on the lists as well, I am the worst and the best and the greatest. There we go. I'm the greatest for making lists. Sorry, I'm not the worst. I'm the best. Sorry, completely wrong turn. I love making lists. Lists are like, I use the reminders app in Apple where you can have lots of little lists broken out to categories. And I always go through them and I curate them as well. So at the end of the month, I remove stuff which actually I'm not that interested in doing anymore. And then throughout the month, I keep adding stuff in. So I've got a big list of blog posts I want to write. I've got the titles done, and I've got like a link to where I think I could take them. Same with videos, same with like little things I need to do. Um, and that's helped a lot. I realize I'm a very list oriented person. Like I think it's agile methodologies have like ruined me
Mm.
of like working in like, having a startup every morning. I almost like, if I had a pet cat, me and the cat would have a startup every morning about what we're going to achieve that day. And I'll do the voice of the cat, obviously. You guys won't know what little accent I give it, but every day it'll be slightly different. Like I'm just imagining that the cat is snarky, just like, oh, you're going to write a blog post? You did that. Nice one.
I would like a whole series of that.
Yeah, that's the new Mike Rogers video series is conversations with the cat. We just need to get you a cat first, and then
It could happen soon enough. There's some floating around outside. Maybe I'll just feed some.
just great. Yeah, I mean that's true. Cats will learn. Yeah, if you start feeding them, they'll learn. My wife's grandma feeds cats in her yard because they kill the chipmunks and squirrels. So she wants them to come.
Yeah.
But they'll come like they'll learn your routine and stuff. So you could just have a little stand up with the cat on your stoop, every morning. That'd be amazing. I would watch that.
Yeah. I think we'll just hit my new video series where it's like, this is what we're gonna do today, cat. Like almost like, was it Pinky in the Brain? What are we gonna do today,
Yes.
Pinky? Little brain.
Same thing we
I'm
do
gonna take
every
over the
night.
world. Yeah.
Love that show. So, one of the things, like talking through all of this has been really fascinating. And I'm like amazed by how many people that I've talked to that have talked about how much they love their job and then suddenly realize that they hate their job, right? Like,
I'm suspicious of people who say they love their job. I'm just like, I don't think you do. I think you're just saying that.
I
Like
think
to,
it's a lot of times like putting your hand in warm water and then slowly boiling it, or frog. I guess you don't do that with,
yeah,
I'm not,
I know
shouldn't
the
do it with a
analogy
frog
you
either,
need.
but yeah, the
Yeah.
point is like you increase the temperature and don't realize it because it's just like this slow process until like suddenly you're boiling. And then I think at that point you're like, oh, maybe I don't love this. Maybe I did love this at one point, but all of these things are keep changing and I just missed it or kept thinking that it will get better and it just keeps getting worse. And then we don't talk about that kind of stuff enough. And I think part of it, like you said, we make a lot of money in tech and you can make a lot of money and not be happy. And it's okay to not love to code, but there's a difference between not loving to code and really being unhappy because it bleeds out into all the other aspects of your life too.
Exactly. Like if you're like unhappy at work and you can't quite identify like what the cause is, or like you're unhappy outside of work and you've got to bring it in, like it just kind of it slows you down in the other places, and you've got to like really find the good bits. And this is why I'm also suspicious of people who say they really love their job. Sorry, I'm like mumbling next to it because I'm like, we aren't allowed to say we don't like our job. It's not allowed. It's like, no, if you don't tell people you hate certain things about work, it's never going to change. You've got to almost go up to your manager or be the change you want to see in the office.
Mhm.
So if you want to
Yeah.
like do, I don't know, certain processes, just start doing them and then see if anyone will like fight you on like not doing them to see what happens. Like worst case scenario, you have a fun argument with someone and you'll be able to find out the benefits of something or maybe not. So
I love that. This actually that goes right into a question I was going to ask was you mentioned when you were talking about uh, your freelancing experience, before, and when it's sort of you said it as an aside, but you said you sometimes have problems with authority, and it had
yeah,
been one of the reasons why you had stuck with the freelancing for so long. And my question was basically just like I was wondering, you have now are working for sort of a larger organization. I was just wondering how that is, vis-a-vis like authority and having bosses and probably different tiers of managers. I'm not really sure, but that sort of thing. I was wondering if that has
it's
any
so
had any effect on
different.
you.
It's so different. I find it almost comical every time I have to like fill out some kind of form, and I always make sure like I tell people that this is a stupid form, or like, hey, this is a waste of time. Like we've just spent like 3 hours planning for something. Like, yeah. What surprises me as well, big companies, you have meetings about when you're going to have a meeting about something more frequently than you expect. Like, I feel like when I was a freelancer, that was like, they would never bring a freelancer into that kind of meeting. That is like, this is what we're going to get the freelancer to do. Cool. All right. We'll just give them the work or give them the work even. Yeah, I'm still terrible with authority figures where it's like someone tells me to do something and I'm just like, I'm only going to do it if I want to do it. Have that, manager. Figure out how you're going to motivate me to do this.
I,
And
I
it's like,
love
and
that.
you're not allowed to say money.
The I've been a freelancer, my whole career, and that's uh, one of the reasons why I've almost never really. I mean, there's only been a couple times where I've really considered, you know, switching to some sort of full time job. But the thing about the meetings and especially being a freelancer, not being in those meetings is actually like can be really frustrating too.
Yeah.
I found, the somebody just gives you the work, but you don't have any connection to the inception of the work, or like probably you might actually have a better idea than theirs. I feel like that's
Yeah.
maybe a pro for getting more involved in a company, at a higher level kind of thing. At least
Yeah.
in my,
I think
you know.
I've definitely had work come in where I'm just like, why didn't we just do the simple way? And then I reply back and then they're like, oh, we didn't know about that. And we just wasted hours planning this work out for you. And it's like, cool. So we'll just do it the easy way then? Nice. Cool. And do I still get paid? Like the same amount? Because that was going to take weeks. Um,
There should be like a bonus for those situations.
that's not how
Yeah.
freelancing ever has worked. But I
Yeah, no,
remember.
that's not.
Like,
Yeah, that's it. I mean, the bonus is that they trust you more and they, keep paying for your work. I mean, that's the bonus, I suppose, as a freelancer,
yeah.
but also
You get
personally, I hate doing things that are stupid too. Like I've never
same
been,
boat.
I know some people where, you get that same thing. You're like, I know that there's an easy way to do this. That would take me an hour. And the way they've asked me will take 2 weeks or something, you know, and, I could just let it ride, but I
You
would
just
be
get paid.
miserable for those 2 weeks, and I'm like, no,
Yeah.
let's just do the easy way. It'll be fine. It'll be better.
Yeah, this is why I think this is also one of the things which has made me a happier person. I always like kind of pushing back on everything where I can, or at least trying to be a bit like confrontational because otherwise you're going to be doing that miserable work all day. And it's like, there's no point doing the miserable work because like it's just going to get deleted the week after when someone decides they want to do it the easy way. and you're just kind of wasting your time, and your time's so precious. Like, I'm not sure about anyone listening to this, but like, I feel young right now, but I'm also scared that soon I'm gonna wake up and be this like crazy, like my life's gone, of like best years have passed or something. And I don't want to spend it like trying to solve some stupid problem, like when there's an easy way to do it. I wanna be out playing golf or like doing something more interesting.
Tending your garden, right?
Tending to my garden, yeah,
Brushing his garden.
Yeah, brushing the soil.
brushing- but yeah, thinking back to that now, I think I meant raking the soil.
Sure,
Yeah, I
raking.
think
Yeah,
you did
that's
too.
That was
that makes sense.
100%
That
it.
makes sense.
It only took me 20 minutes to figure that out. I'm glad we had a meeting about that.
Right. Yeah. Oh man, that's amazing. I still do love that metaphor, though. I'm going to be thinking about it the rest of the day.
I feel like I want to get like, have you seen where people have like live, laugh, live, or like,
Lo-
so
Mhm.
throw those out because those are terrible, but
Yes.
change it with like, garden your career, or your career as a garden, like brush it.
I have those.
I will tell
I
Brush your garden today.
brush that dirt.
I think we have a code of conduct.
I can't. I have a
Like
hard time with
Icarus
those
right
sites.
now. It's like flying as close to the kind of and
Oh man, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm gonna make that sign for sure. I can't. Every time I
That's
see those
going to be
signs,
a
I'm just like,
sticker. We need
don't
that on a
don't tell
sticker.
me, don't tell me what to do. Sign.
you
Oh
are my
man,
manager, but not. I don't listen to you. So like,
yeah,
you're my manager, but I'm ignoring you because you're wrong.
yeah.
I
You're in
really want
management.
to.
You're not a developer. Sorry.
Woo! Hot
Ugh,
takes.
Well,
Spicy.
well, you had that lot. What was it? Oh, good luck managing me or something. Good luck motivating me to do that.
Yes, that is what I want on my laptop. It's like,
Oh
Like
man,
we're like almost at time, and I really want to
yeah,
dive into that idea of motivation a little bit more because it's something that I've been interested in. And you're talking about this competition that you have with your friend, and so like
yeah.
obviously that's a good motivator. But I think I don't know if we have time to talk about this, so maybe just
Let's
a
let's jump
little
into it
bit of thoughts
quickly.
on how to motivate people and keep them from stagnation, right? Because that's part of it.
Yeah. So I've got like one quick trick, and it's like, so I have a podcast I listen to where it's like a meditation podcast, and that has been so wonderful. I talk about it in VC quite a lot. I think it's called Meditation Minis. They're 10 minutes. They come out like once a week, and they are just a wonderful way of just like before bed, I sit down and I was very skeptical when I first tried it, but something about this sitting down and this relaxing for 10 minutes before bed has helped me enormously from just, I think, just getting a better night's sleep and having good sleep hygiene as well. So I feel better. Like I don't work till like 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning and wake up at 7 a.m. and then like wreck my, wreck my sleep schedule, which has been good. And I also really recommend everyone, if you're not feeling great, talk to a therapist. It's like, it's super easy now. There's apps to do it. It's like, you don't have to kind of go to a place and chat to them in person. You could talk to someone just via WhatsApp, and then they'll just do the things, and then you might feel better. And the reason I also say therapist as well is when someone explained the concept of therapy, I was like, that sounds weird. But then they said to me, okay, so your parents, no one told them how to raise you. They figured it out and they screwed up everything, probably. So, so a therapist is like, they iron out the bits your parents like didn't quite give you the tools to like solve in life. So like how to deal with like being really unhappy, or they'll give you some techniques to deal with it. Or if you're feeling anxious, they have approaches which no one tells you about until you pay them the money. And it's like $100, and they'll tell you, okay, here's the secret to like getting rid of anxiety if you're feeling anxious about something. And then also, yeah, a bit of healthy competition. Like I love to show off, and like I love to be competitive with my friends. So like we always send each other what we're up to and try and get feedback. And sometimes we are brutally honest with each other, saying, this is a terrible idea. You're going to waste all your money here. And then other times it's like they're like, no, this is an interesting idea. You should give it a go. And a really good example of me being completely wrong. One of my friends showed me this app idea he had where it was people watching YouTube videos together, and this was pre-pandemic. And being able to write notes around them and then have a bit of a conversation afterwards. And I was like, that's a stupid idea. That'll never take off. I found a app recently which had raised tons of money to do just that.
Yep.
And it was a really good app.
Yeah.
And I was like, we were watching, I think it was a Sandy Metz talk together with a bunch of other developers. And I was like, this is perfect. This is what I like. And I really regret not encouraging my friend now. I really regret it because he could have been a millionaire, I think.
That's one of those weird things that like the pandemic, I feel like it doesn't sound like a good idea. It didn't sound like a good idea to me either. That sort of thing, because and then, well, now we can't actually be in the same room together. So like,
perfect. I love it. I hate
now
being in the same room as people.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly.
But
Well, Mike, it's been
be fantastic.
It's been a really good podcast episode. So thank you.
We should probably wrap up before I talk for another 2 hours and we end up having some mega session or something. And
yes.
Like the
Is
listeners
there
are like,
any...
I think maybe we'll save like another topic for another podcast season or something. And I hope, if I could go out on like one final thing is, obviously we talked about if you're feeling like stagnant in your career, just talk to people, even if it's a private one, you will feel better for that. And we've all gone through this. We all feel sad. So just talk. Tell people, ask for help. You'll feel better for it.
Absolutely. That's a great piece of advice to end the show.
My DMs are normally open.
I love it.
So happy to chat to people.
All right. Thanks, Mike. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Mike.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Virtual Coffee Podcast. This episode was produced by Dan Ott and Bekah Weigel and edited by Dan Ott. If you have questions or comments, you can hit us up on Twitter at virtualcoffee.io, or you can email us at podcast@virtualcoffee.io. You can find the show notes, plus you can sign up for our newsletter to find out what Virtual Coffee's been up to on our website at virtualcoffee.io.
Please subscribe to our podcast and be sure to leave us a review. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.